Document. Part 6 The Aurora Dawn drifted silently through the vast darkness of space, its engines humming softly as it carried its crew further into the unknown. The recent encounter with the Vorthik had left everyone shaken, but also more determined than ever to protect Grimble and themselves. Though the immediate danger had passed, the memory of those shadowy, energy-based beings lingered in the minds of the crew like a storm cloud refusing to dissipate. Grimble, too, seemed affected by the ordeal. His movements were slower now, his glowing green eye dimmer, despite the stabilizing device Karen and Mia had created. The strain of interfacing with the ship systems during the confrontation with the Vorthik had taken a toll on his fragile body. He spent most of his time lying quietly in his habitat, gazing out at the holographic projections of stars and alien landscapes that surrounded him. Mia visited Grimble daily, sitting by the glass enclosure and speaking softly to him. She told him about Earth, the blue skies, the oceans, the bustling cities filled with life. She described the people she had left behind, her family, her friends. And though Grimble couldn't reply in words, his glowing eye followed her every movement, as if listening intently. "You remind me of home," Mia admitted one evening, her voice tinged with sadness. "Not because you look like anything I've seen before, but because of how much you care. You've shown us what it means to stand up for others, even when it costs you everything." Grimble let out a low wheeze, almost like a sigh. Then he pressed his snout gently against the glass, leaving a faint imprint where it touched. The gesture was simple, yet deeply meaningful, a reminder that connection transcended language and form. Karen continued her research, studying Grimble's biology and the data he had transmitted during their encounters with the Vorthik. She worked tirelessly, poring over charts and diagrams in an effort to understand the full scope of the threat they faced. Her lab became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where she could focus on finding solutions without the weight of fear clouding her thoughts. One afternoon, Karen called Mia into the lab. "I've been analyzing the patterns Grimble showed us," she said, pointing to a series of waveforms on her tablet. "These aren't just warnings, they're coordinates." "Coordinates?" Mia asked, leaning closer to examine the screen. "To where? To their homeworld," Karen replied. "Or at least, what's left of it. It seems the Vorthik abandoned their physical planet long ago, leaving behind only ruins. But there's something else, a signal emanating from the site. Something powerful." "What kind of signal?" Mia asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm not sure yet," Karen admitted. "But if we can decode it, we might learn more about the Vorthik's intentions and how to stop them." Captain Lucas Hart was briefed on the discovery shortly afterward. Standing on the bridge, he listened carefully as Karen explained the implications of the coordinates. "If this signal is real, it could give us an edge," Hart said thoughtfully. "But getting close enough to investigate won't be easy. The Vorthik are still out there, and they'll be watching for us. We don't have to go directly," Karen suggested. "We can approach from the opposite side of the system, using the asteroid belt as cover. It'll take longer, but it'll reduce our chances of being detected." Hart nodded, weighing the risks. Finally, he made his decision. "Set a course for the coordinates. We'll proceed cautiously, keeping all sensors active. If we spot any sign of the Vorthik, we retreat immediately." The crew sprang into action, adjusting the ship's trajectory and preparing for the journey ahead. Tension hung thick in the air, but there was also a sense of purpose. They had faced death before and emerged victorious with Grimble's help. Now, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing they had each other to rely on. As the Aurora Dawn approached the coordinates, the crew began noticing strange anomalies in the surrounding space. The stars appeared distorted, their light bending and flickering as if refracted through water. Sensors picked up faint energy readings, pulsating in irregular patterns. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. "This must be it," Karen whispered, her eyes glued to the monitors. The remnants of the Vorthik's homeworld. On the view screen, a desolate planet came into view. Its surface was cracked and barren, littered with the skeletal remains of ancient structures. Towers of metal jutted out from the ground like broken teeth, their surfaces corroded and crumbling. Yet amidst the decay, a faint glow emanated from the center of the ruins, a beacon of light that pulsed rhythmically, almost hypnotically. "We need to get closer," Karen urged. "That signal might hold the answers we're looking for." Captain Hart hesitated, his expression grim. "We'll send a probe first. If it's safe, we'll consider landing." The probe was launched, its cameras transmitting live footage back to the ship. As it descended toward the planet's surface, the crew gathered on the bridge, watching intently. The images revealed the landscape frozen in time, abandoned machinery, shattered statues, and pathways leading to nowhere. At the heart of the ruins stood a massive structure, its walls etched with intricate carvings that glowed faintly with the same energy signature. they had detected earlier. It's beautiful, Mia murmured, her voice filled with awe. And terrifying. The probe reached the entrance of the structure, revealing a cavernous interior illuminated by the same pulsating light. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting and rearranging themselves as if alive. The probe's sensors recorded bursts of energy, matching the patterns Grimble had transmitted, before they could analyze the data further. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Eric Hughes turned sharply in his seat, his fingers flying across the controls. Something's coming, he shouted. Fast? On the view screen, a swarm of energy tendrils emerged from the ruins, swirling toward the Aurora Dawn asterisk. The Vorthik had found them, weapons online. Captain Hart barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The ship shuddered violently as the tendrils lashed out, probing for weaknesses in the hull. Lights flickered, and consoles sparked as the crew fought to maintain control. Amidst the commotion, Grimble began to stir in his habitat, his glowing green eye brightened and his body trembled with effort. He's reacting to them, Karen said urgently, rushing to his side. He's trying to communicate again. Mia knelt beside Grimble, placing her hand against the glass. What is it? What do you want to tell us? Images flooded Mia's mind once more, this time showing the glowing symbols from the ruins. They pulsed in sync with the energy tendrils, forming a pattern that resonated deep within her consciousness. She gasped, clutching her head as the vision overwhelmed her. The symbols, she cried. They're a key, a way to disable the Vorthik. How? Karen demanded, gripping Mia's shoulders. What do we do? Mia struggled to speak, the images flashing rapidly in her mind. We need to replicate the pattern, broadcast it back to them. It'll disrupt their cohesion. Karen nodded, understanding dawning on her face. It's worth a shot. Let's try it together. They raced to the communications console, inputting the sequence of symbols into the ship's transmitter. Grimble's wheezing barks guided them, his body glowing brighter as the signal took shape. When the final symbol was entered, Karen activated the broadcast. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the energy tendrils froze mid-motion, their forms flickering and destabilizing. One by one, they dissolved into thin air, retreating back into the ruins. The attack ceased as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the Aurora Dawn battered, but intact. Silence fell over the ship as the crew processed what had just happened. Captain Hart exhaled slowly, his shoulders sagging with relief. Well done, he said simply, his voice heavy with gratitude. Karen and Mia exchanged weary smiles, their exhaustion overshadowed by triumph. Grimble, meanwhile, lay motionless in his habitat, his glowing green eye dimming once again, though weakened. He let out a soft wheeze, a sound of contentment, as if acknowledging their success. Later that night, Mia returned to Grimble's enclosure, sitting quietly by the glass. You saved us again, she whispered. I don't know how we'll ever repay you. Grimble tilted his head, his mismatched eyes reflecting trust and affection. He didn't need words to convey his message. His actions spoke louder than any language ever could. As the Aurora Dawn resumed its journey, the crew reflected on the events that had unfolded. They had faced unimaginable danger, confronted their own fears, and emerged stronger for it. Grimble had taught them the value of resilience, compassion, and unity, lessons they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. And though the universe remained vast and mysterious, one thing was certain: wherever they went, whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together with Grimble by their side. We gave Earth a bomb. What they did next was unbelievable. The year was 2087, and the world stood still. For decades, humanity had looked up at the stars, wondering if they were alone in the vastness of space. The question had been asked countless times in books, movies, and late-night conversations, but no one expected the answer to come crashing down into Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. It started with a faint glimmer in the sky. At first, people thought it was just another satellite, or maybe even a trick of the light. But as the object grew larger, brighter, and closer, it became clear that this was no ordinary visitor. News outlets scrambled to cover the event, broadcasting live footage of the massive spacecraft descending through the atmosphere. It wasn't sleek or shiny like the spaceships in science fiction films. Instead, its surface shimmered with shifting colors, as though it were alive, pulsing with energy. By the time the craft settled above New York City, the entire planet was watching, billions of eyes glued to screens, waiting for something, anything, to happen. And then it did. A voice boomed across every channel, every device, every speaker in the world. It wasn't loud or threatening. It was calm, almost soothing. We bring you peace, the voice said. The words echoed in perfect English, though no one could figure out how Scientists would later speculate that the aliens calling themselves the Valens had used some kind of advanced translation technology to communicate directly with human minds. Whatever the method, it worked. Those three simple words sent shockwaves through society. Within hours, the Valen ship descended further, landing gently in Central Park. Crowds gathered around the perimeter, their faces a mix of awe and fear. Military forces surrounded the area, unsure whether to treat the situation as a threat or a miracle. Politicians debated what to do next, while conspiracy theorists went wild online, claiming everything from divine intervention to an elaborate hoax. From the belly of the ship emerged Kale, the leader of the Valens. He or she, since gender seemed irrelevant when it came to alien species, was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver under the sun. Its eyes were large and dark, devoid of any visible pupils, yet somehow full of wisdom. Kale moved gracefully, each step deliberate, as though aware of the weight of the moment. Kale addressed the United Nations via a translator device, explaining their mission. They claimed to have traveled across galaxies to share knowledge and forge alliances with other intelligent species. To prove their intentions, they offer gifts, advanced medical equipment capable of curing diseases, blueprints for clean energy systems that could power cities without harming the environment, and tools that could revolutionize agriculture and end world hunger. But there was one gift that left everyone speechless: a bomb. Not just any bomb, but a weapon so powerful it could obliterate entire continents. The Valens handed it over without explanation, leaving humanity to decide what to do with it. Some saw it as a gesture of trust, proof that the aliens believed humans were ready to handle such responsibility. Others viewed it as a test, a way to see how humanity would react when given the means to destroy itself or perhaps others. Stephen Carter, a physicist working for NASA, was among the scientists tasked with analyzing the mysterious object. Man in his early 40s with graying hair and a perpetually furrowed brow, Stephen had spent most of his career studying theoretical physics and dreaming of the day humanity would make contact with extraterrestrial life. Now that it had happened, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Standing in the lab where the bomb had been brought for examination, Stephen stared at the sleek metallic casing. It was smooth to the touch, cool despite the room's warmth, and utterly silent. There were no buttons, no wires, no visible mechanism to suggest how it worked. Yet the readings his instruments picked up were undeniable. This thing was real, and it was dangerous. "What are you thinking?" asked Laura Bennett, his colleague and closest friend. She was younger than him by a decade, with sharp green eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that often balanced out Stephen's tendency to overthink things. Like Stephen, she had dedicated her life to science, though her specialty was quantum mechanics rather than astrophysics. "I'm thinking this doesn't add up," Stephen replied, running a hand through his hair. "They say they're here to help us, but why give us something like this? Why not leave it behind or destroy it themselves?" "Maybe they don't know how," Laura suggested. "Or maybe they think we're smart enough to figure it out." Stephen shook his head. "That's what worries me. What if we're not ready for this kind of power? Look at our history. We've barely managed to avoid blowing ourselves up with nuclear weapons. Now we've got something infinitely worse." Laura didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked around the bomb, inspecting it from different angles. Her fingers hovered above its surface, tracing the faint etchings that spiraled across the metal. "Do you notice anything strange about these symbols?" she asked after a moment. Stephen leaned in closer. The markings were subtle, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. They didn't match any known language on Earth, nor did they resemble the mathematical equations printed in scientific journals. "No idea what they mean," he admitted, "but I doubt they're decorative. They're instructions." A voice chimed in from behind them. Both scientists turned to see Daniel Harper, a linguist who had been called in to assist with deciphering alien communications. Short and weary, with glasses perched precariously on his nose, Daniel looked more like a college professor than someone involved in interstellar diplomacy. But his expertise was undeniable. "What makes you say that?" Laura asked. Daniel pointed to one of the symbols. "This one right here, it appears multiple times throughout the pattern. In many ancient languages, repetition signifies importance. My guess is these aren't random designs. They're telling us something." Stephen frowned. "Telling us what? How to use it? Or how to stop it? That's the million-dollar question." Daniel said with a shrug. "Unfortunately, we won't know until we dig deeper." As the days passed, news of the bomb spread like wildfire. Governments convened emergency meetings to discuss what to do with it. Some argued for immediate dismantling, citing the potential risks of keeping such a weapon in existence. Others advocated for reverse engineering it, hoping to unlock secrets that could benefit humanity. Still, others saw it as a bargaining chip, a way to assert dominance on the global stage. Journalist Rachel Myers covered the unfolding drama, filing reports from the front lines of the debate. Unlike many of her peers, Rachel approached the story with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. She interviewed politicians, scientists, activists, and ordinary citizens, trying to piece together a narrative that made sense of the chaos. One evening, while reviewing footage from a recent protest outside the United Nations headquarters, Rachel noticed something odd. Protesters held signs demanding transparency, accusing world leaders of hiding information about the bomb. Among the crowd, she spotted a familiar face: Stephen Carter. He wasn't supposed to be there. As far as she knew, he was holed up in the lab, working around the clock to analyze the device. Intrigued, Rachel decided to pay him a visit. When she arrived at the facility, she found Stephen pacing back and forth in his office, muttering to himself. Papers covered every available surface, scribbled with notes and diagrams. Laura sat nearby, typing furiously on her laptop. "You're not going to believe this," Rachel said, holding up her camera. "I saw you at the protest today." "Care to explain?" Stephen froze, then sighed. "I needed air," he said simply. "Being cooped up in here all day isn't helping anyone. Besides, I wanted to see what people are saying, their fears, their hopes. It's important." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "And what did you learn?" "That we're not ready for this," Stephen replied. "Not even close. Half the protesters think the bomb is a blessing, the other half think it's a curse. No one agrees on anything." Laura chimed in. "Except that we need answers. Fast?" Rachel nodded. "Which brings me to my next question. Any progress on figuring out those symbols?" Stephen hesitated, glancing at Laura before answering. "We think they might be warnings. Or instructions. Maybe both. Either way, we're missing something big. Something crucial." Rachel studied him carefully. She'd known Stephen long enough to recognize when he was holding back. "Is there something you're not telling me?" For a moment, Stephen considered lying, but something in Rachel's expression stopped him. "There's more to the bomb than meets the eye," he admitted finally. "We've detected anomalies, things we can't explain." "Like what?" Rachel pressed. "Energy fluctuations, patterns that shouldn't exist. It's almost like," he trailed off, searching for the right words, "like it's alive." Rachel finished for him. Stephen nodded slowly. "Exactly." The implications hung heavy in the air. If the bomb was indeed alive, or at least sentient, then humanity was dealing with something far beyond its comprehension. The thought terrified and fascinated Stephen in equal measure. He knew they were treading dangerous ground, but he also knew they couldn't turn back now. Whatever secrets the bomb held, they had to uncover them before it was too late. Little did Stephen realize, however, that the true challenge was only beginning. We gave Earth a bomb. What they did next was unbelievable. The lab was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the occasional clatter of keyboards. Stephen, Laura, and Daniel worked late into the night, their faces illuminated by the glow of computer screens. The discovery of the hidden message to unlock creation, destroy the seed, had sent them spiraling into new theories and debates. None of them could agree on what it meant. Was the seed the bomb itself, or something inside it? And what did unlocking creation entail? Would it bring life or destruction? Stephen leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but his mind raced with possibilities. "If we're interpreting this correctly," he said slowly, "then destroying the bomb might not be the answer. Maybe we're supposed to activate it." Laura shot him a sharp look. "Are you serious? We don't even know what will happen if we do that. For all we know, it could wipe out half the planet." "I'm not saying we should rush into it," Stephen replied, holding up his hands. "But think about it. Everything about this thing is designed to make us question ourselves. The symbols, the warnings, they're forcing us to choose between fear and curiosity. What if activating it is the only way to find out why they gave it to us?" Daniel chimed in, flipping through pages of notes. "There's another angle here. Ancient myths often talk about destruction leading to renewal. Maybe the seed represents something old that needs to die so something new can grow." Laura sighed, crossing her arms. "That's poetic and all, but we're not dealing with myths. This is real life. If we mess this up, there won't be a second chance." The tension in the room was palpable. Each of them carried the weight of the world on their shoulders, knowing that their decisions could shape the future or end it. Despite their disagreements, they pressed on, determined to uncover more clues. Rachel Myers arrived at the lab early the next morning, carrying coffee and a notebook. She had promised to keep an ear out for anything unusual, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was becoming more involved than she'd intended. When she walked in, she found Stephen pacing back and forth while Laura stared at a screen filled with equations. "Morning," Rachel said cautiously, setting the coffees down. "Any progress?" Stephen stopped pacing and turned to her. "Depends on how you define progress. We've got more questions than answers." Laura swiveled her chair around. "What he means is, we're stuck. We know what the symbols say, but we don't know what they mean. And until we figure that out, we're just guessing." Rachel handed them their coffees and sat down. Guessing isn't exactly comforting when you're dealing with something that could destroy the world. "No kidding," Laura muttered. Stephen took a sip of his coffee and sighed. "We need outside help. Someone who can see this from a different perspective." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You mean someone besides me?" He smiled faintly. "Exactly. You've been great, but we need someone with specialized knowledge. Someone who understands ancient civilizations and symbolism." Rachel thought for a moment. "I might know someone. Dr. Emily Grant. She's a historian who specializes in ancient cultures. Her work focuses on deciphering lost languages and symbols." Laura perked up. "Do you think she'd be willing to help?" "She owes me a favor," Rachel said with a shrug. "I'll call her." By mid-afternoon, Dr. Emily Grant arrived at the lab. A tall woman with curly brown hair and glasses perched on her nose. She carried an air of quiet confidence. After introductions, Stephen explained the situation, showing her images of the symbols and sharing their findings so far. Emily studied the symbols carefully, her brow furrowing as she traced the patterns with her finger. "These are fascinating," she said finally. "They remind me of glyphs used by ancient civilizations to depict transformation. Often, these symbols represented cycles: death followed by rebirth, endings leading to beginnings." "That fits with what Daniel suggested," Stephen said. "But does it give us any insight into what we're supposed to do?" Emily nodded. "It might. In many ancient traditions, destruction wasn't seen as inherently bad. It was part of a larger process. Think of forest fires that clear away dead wood, making room for new growth. Maybe this bomb is meant to serve a similar purpose. But what would it destroy?" Laura asked. "And what would it create? That's the million-dollar question," Emily admitted. "Without more context, it's impossible to say for sure. But one thing is clear: whoever made this wanted you to think deeply about your actions. They didn't just hand over a weapon, they gave you a choice." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Stephen, Laura, and Daniel exchanged uneasy glances. They knew she was right. This wasn't just about solving a puzzle. It was about deciding what kind of future humanity deserved. As days turned into weeks, the team made slow but steady progress. With Emily's help, they began piecing together fragments of the alien language, uncovering subtle nuances in the symbols. Each breakthrough brought them closer to understanding the bomb's purpose, but also heightened the stakes. One evening, as they reviewed their latest findings, Laura noticed something odd. The bomb's surface seemed to shimmer faintly, almost imperceptibly. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but when she touched it, she felt a strange vibration beneath her fingertips. "Guys," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Something's happening." Stephen rushed over, followed by Daniel and Emily. Sure enough, the bomb was glowing softly, its metallic surface pulsing with a rhythmic energy. The symbols etched onto it lit up one by one, forming a sequence that hadn't appeared before. "It's communicating," Daniel breathed. "This isn't random, it's responding to our analysis." "What does it want?" Stephen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could answer, the lights in the lab flickered, and a low hum filled the air. The vibration grew stronger, resonating through the floor and walls. Then, suddenly, the hum stopped, and the room fell silent. On the bomb's surface, a single symbol remained illuminated, a spiral that seemed to spin endlessly. It was unlike anything they had seen before, radiating both beauty and menace. "This changes everything," Laura said, her voice shaking. "Whatever this thing is, it's alive." News of the incident spread quickly, thanks to a security camera feed that Rachel accidentally left running during the event. Within hours, footage of the glowing bomb went viral, sparking panic and speculation worldwide. Governments demanded immediate action, while conspiracy theorists claimed the aliens were preparing to invade. The pressure mounted on Stephen and his team to provide answers. Rachel stood outside the lab, watching as military vehicles rolled in, surrounding the building. Commander Alex Johnson, a stern-faced officer with a reputation for taking charge, approached her. "Ms. Myers," he said curtly, "I need to speak with Dr. Carter and his team now." Rachel hesitated, torn between her loyalty to the scientist and her duty as a journalist. They're working on something critical, she said carefully. Interrupting them could jeopardize everything. Johnson's expression hardened. With all due respect, Ms. Myers, the fate of the world is at stake. We can't afford to wait. Reluctantly, Rachel led him inside. When they entered the lab, Stephen, Laura, and Daniel were huddled around the bomb, deep in conversation. Emily stood nearby, jotting down notes. The sight of the glowing spiral caught Johnson off guard, and for a moment, he simply stared. "What is that?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of unease. Stephen stepped forward, meeting the commander's gaze. "We don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's trying to tell us something." Johnson frowned. "Trying to tell us what?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," Laura interjected. "But we need time. Rushing this could have catastrophic consequences." Johnson crossed his arms. "Time is a luxury we don't have. People are scared. They want answers and they want them now." Stephen sighed, recognizing the truth in Johnson's words. He glanced at his team, silently asking for their support. They nodded, united in their determination to see this through. "Fine," Stephen said finally. "But you have to trust us. Let us finish our work without interference. If we can decode this message, we might be able to prevent disaster." Johnson hesitated, weighing the options. Finally, he nodded. "You've got 48 hours. After that, we take matters into our own hands." As the commander left, the weight of the deadline settled over the team. 48 hours wasn't much time, but it was all they had. Stephen looked at Laura, Daniel, Emily, and finally Rachel. "Let's get to work," he said firmly. "We can't let them down." No one argued. ***, we gave Earth a bomb. What they did next was unbelievable. ***, the clock was ticking. 48 hours wasn't much time to unravel the mysteries of an alien artifact that defied every known law of physics. Stephen, Laura, Daniel, Emily, and Rachel worked tirelessly, their movements synchronized despite the exhaustion weighing them down. The glowing spiral on the bomb's surface pulsed faintly, as though it were alive and watching their every move. Stephen stood closest to the bomb, his eyes fixed on the illuminated symbol. "It's not just communicating," he muttered. "It's waiting for what?" Laura asked, her voice tight with frustration. She had been running simulations for hours, trying to decode the patterns emitted by the spiral, but nothing made sense. Every equation she plugged into the computer led to dead ends or contradictory results. "Maybe it's waiting for us to make a decision," Emily suggested. She had spent the past day cross-referencing the spiral with ancient symbols from cultures around the world. In many traditions, spirals represent cycles: life, death, rebirth. It could be testing whether we're ready to embrace change. Rachel, who had been quietly observing from the corner, spoke up. "Or maybe it's giving us a choice. Destroy it or activate it. Either way, it's our call." Daniel nodded, rubbing his temples. "But how do we know which choice is right? If we destroy it, we might miss out on something incredible. If we activate it, we risk everything." Laura slammed her hand on the desk in frustration. "That's the problem. We don't have enough information. We're flying blind here." Stephen turned to her, his expression calm but firm. "Then we gather more data. We can't afford to panic. Not now." As the team debated, strange phenomena began occurring around the lab. Electrical equipment malfunctioned without warning. Lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing hour. At first, they dismissed these occurrences as side effects of the bomb's energy field. But when unexplained, temperature drops left frost on the windows. Even the most skeptical among them started to feel uneasy. One night, while reviewing sensor readings, Laura noticed something unusual. The bomb wasn't just emitting energy, it was absorbing it. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a graph on her laptop screen. "It's pulling power from the grid, but not using it. It's like it's storing it. Storing it for what?" Stephen asked, leaning over her shoulder. "I don't know," Laura admitted. "But whatever it's doing, it's accelerating. Look at the rate of absorption, it's increasing exponentially." Emily frowned. "If it keeps this up, it could overload the system, or worse, destabilize itself." Daniel shook his head. "Destabilizing the bomb might be exactly what it wants. Remember the message: to unlock creation, destroy the seed. Maybe it needs to reach a critical point before it reveals its purpose." Rachel stepped forward, her journalist instincts kicking in. "So you're saying the bomb is designed to push us to the edge, to force us to act?" "It's possible," Stephen said slowly. "But if that's true, then we're running out of time to decide." Meanwhile, outside the lab, tensions were reaching a boiling point. Commander Alex Johnson had stationed armed guards around the facility. Citing security concerns, journalists and protesters gathered at the perimeter, demanding transparency. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire online, fueled by leaked footage of the glowing spiral. Some claimed the bomb was a weapon of mass destruction. Others believed it was a gift meant to save humanity. The divide between hope and fear grew wider with each passing hour. Rachel tried to keep the public informed, filing updates whenever she could sneak away from the lab. Her articles painted a picture of scientists working against the clock to prevent disaster. But they also highlighted the uncertainty surrounding the bomb. She knew she couldn't reveal everything, not without risking chaos, but she wanted people to understand the gravity of the situation. One evening, as she typed up her latest report, a knock came at the door. It was Commander Johnson. "Ms. Myers," he said, his tone clipped. "I need to see Dr. Carter immediately." Rachel hesitated. "Is something wrong?" "That's classified." Johnson replied, "Just tell him to meet me in the control room." When Rachel relayed the message to Stephen, he exchanged a worried glance with Laura before heading off. Moments later, he returned, his face pale. "They've detected anomalies in the energy field," he said. "The military thinks the bomb might be preparing to detonate." "What?" Laura exclaimed, standing abruptly. "How do they know?" "They don't," Stephen admitted, "but they're considering evacuating the area as a precaution." "That's insane," Daniel interjected. "If they evacuate, we'll lose access to the lab and the bomb. We won't be able to finish decoding it." "We have less than 24 hours, Emily reminded them. "If we stop now, we might never figure out what it wants." Rachel looked at the group, sensing the weight of their dilemma. "What are you going to do?" Stephen took a deep breath. "We stay. No matter what happens, we stay and see this through." Back in the lab, the team redoubled their efforts. Laura focused on tracking the energy fluctuations, hoping to predict the bomb's next move. Daniel and Emily worked together to decipher additional symbols, searching for hidden meanings. Stephen coordinated their findings, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. As dawn approached, Laura let out a gasp. "I think I found something," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. On her screen was a series of equations that aligned perfectly with the bomb's energy patterns. "It's not random. The energy absorption follows a specific sequence, a countdown." "A countdown of what?" Stephen asked, rushing to her side. "I'm not sure," Laura admitted, "but based on the rate of absorption, it'll reach critical mass in about 12 hours. 12 hours. That was all they had left. Stephen felt a chill run down his spine. If we're interpreting this correctly, then activating the bomb might be the only way to stop it from overloading. Laura hesitated. And if we're wrong, then we're looking at global catastrophe, Daniel said bluntly. Emily placed a hand on Laura's shoulder. We have to trust our instincts. Everything about this thing has been leading us to this moment. It's testing us to see if we're ready to take the next step. Rachel watched the exchange, her heart pounding. She knew the stakes couldn't be higher. So what's the plan? Stephen turned to face the group, his expression resolute. We prepare for activation, but we document everything. If this goes wrong, the world deserves to know why. Over the next several hours, the team worked feverishly to set up safeguards. They recorded detailed notes, filmed the process, and ensured that every step was documented in case they failed. As the final hours ticked away, the atmosphere in the lab grew tense. The glowing spiral on the bomb's surface spun faster, its light intensifying with each passing minute. Commander Johnson appeared once more, his face grim. Dr. Carter, we've received orders to shut this operation down. You need to evacuate immediately. Stephen shook his head. We can't leave. Not now. If we do, billions of lives are at risk. Johnson's jaw tightened. You're gambling with the fate of the planet. I can't allow that. You don't have a choice. Stephen replied firmly. This isn't just about us, it's about everyone. Let us finish what we started. For a long moment, Johnson stared at him, weighing the options. Finally, he nodded. You've got 6 hours. After that, I'm taking control. As the commander left, Stephen turned back to his team. Let's get to work. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Each of them knew what was at stake. With trembling hands and racing hearts, they prepared to activate the bomb, hoping against hope that they had interpreted its message correctly. ***, we gave Earth a bomb. What they did next was unbelievable. ***, the hours slipped away like sand through an hourglass, each grain marking the dwindling time before the bomb reached its critical point. The lab was eerily quiet except for the hum of equipment and the occasional murmur of voices. As Stephen, Laura, Daniel, Emily, and Rachel worked feverishly to prepare for activation, the glowing spiral on the bomb's surface now pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Its light casting eerie shadows across the room. It felt alive. Watching them, waiting. Stephen stood at the center of it all, his hands trembling slightly as he double-checked the sequence they had pieced together from the symbols. "If we're right," he said, breaking the silence, "activating the bomb will release whatever energy is inside it. But if we're wrong," Laura finished his sentence, "then we're looking at a disaster beyond anything we've ever seen." Daniel nodded grimly, adjusting the camera that recorded their every move. "At least if something goes wrong, the world will know what happened. That's the best we can do." Rachel, who had been pacing nervously near the door, stopped and looked at the group. "Do you think the Valens knew this would happen? That we'd be forced into making such a huge decision?" Emily shrugged, her voice calm but tinged with uncertainty. "Maybe. Or maybe they just gave us the tools and let us decide for ourselves. Either way, this isn't about them anymore. It's about us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Each of them felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on their shoulders. This wasn't just about solving a puzzle, it was about proving to themselves and to the rest of humanity that they were capable of handling such immense power. As the countdown approached its final hour, strange things began happening around the lab. The temperature dropped sharply, frost creeping along the walls and windows. Equipment malfunctioned sporadically, screens flickering and lights dimming without warning. Even the air seemed charged, crackling with static electricity. It was as though the bomb itself was reacting to their preparations, testing their resolve. Laura noticed something odd while monitoring the energy readings. "Guys," she called out, her voice tight with urgency, "the absorption rate has spiked. It's pulling in energy faster than before." Stephen rushed to her side, scanning the data. "How much time do we have left?" "Less than 30 minutes, Laura replied. "And if it keeps accelerating like this, it might overload sooner." Daniel swore under his breath. "We need to speed things up. If we wait too long, we won't get another chance." Stephen took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Okay, let's do this. Everyone knows their role. Stick to the plan, no matter what happens." Outside the lab, tension had reached a breaking point. Commander Alex Johnson paced back and forth in the control room, his face etched with worry. Military personnel monitored the situation closely, ready to intervene if necessary. Journalists and protesters gathered outside the facility, their shouts carrying faintly through the reinforced walls. Some demanded transparency, others called for immediate action, but none of them truly understood the gravity of what was unfolding inside. Johnson's radio crackled to life. "Sir," came a voice from the other end. "We're detecting unusual activity near the site. Electrical surges, seismic tremors. It's like the whole area is destabilizing." "Keep me updated," Johnson barked, his grip tightening on the device. He glanced at the clock. Less than an hour remained until the deadline he had given Stephen's team. If they didn't deactivate or activate the bomb soon, he would be forced to take drastic measures. A soldier approached him cautiously. "Sir, should we evacuate the surrounding area? Just in case?" Johnson hesitated. Ordering an evacuation could cause widespread panic, but delaying might put innocent lives at risk. Finally, he nodded. "Issue a limited evacuation order. Focus on the immediate vicinity, and make sure everyone stays clear of the lab." "Yes, sir," the soldier replied before hurrying off. Johnson stared at the closed doors leading to the lab, his mind racing. He wanted to trust Stephen and his team, but the stakes were too high. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic, and he couldn't afford to gamble with billions of lives. Back inside the lab, the team was running out of time. Stephen stood in front of the bomb, his fingers hovering over the controls they had rigged based on their interpretation of the symbols. Beside him, Laura monitored the energy levels, her eyes glued to the screen. Daniel and Emily reviewed the sequence one last time, ensuring there were no mistakes. Rachel filmed everything, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Energy levels are stable for now," Laura announced, "but we're cutting it close. You need to start the activation process." Stephen nodded, taking a deep breath. "All right, here goes nothing." He pressed the first button in the sequence, and the room shuddered slightly. The glowing spiral on the bomb's surface brightened, spinning faster than before. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether the reaction was normal or a sign of impending disaster. "It's working," Daniel said, his voice tinged with both relief and disbelief. "The energy field is stabilizing for now," Emily added cautiously. "Don't celebrate yet. We still have to finish the sequence." Stephen moved to the next step, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The bomb responded with another pulse of light, this one stronger than the last. Frost spread rapidly across the floor, and the air grew colder. Rachel adjusted her camera, capturing every detail. "We're halfway there," Laura reported, her voice strained. but the countdown is speeding up. We need to hurry. Stephen pressed the third button, and the room shook violently. Equipment toppled over, and sparks flew from overloaded circuits. The glowing spiral now dominated the room. Its light blinding. The hum grew deafening, drowning out all other sounds. Something's wrong, Daniel shouted, pointing to the screen. The energy levels are spiking. They're going to overload. Laura frantically typed commands into her laptop, attempting to stabilize the system. I'm trying to compensate, but it's not enough. We're losing control. Stephen hesitated for a brief moment, then pressed the final button in the sequence. For a split second, everything went silent. Then, with a deafening roar, the bomb erupted in a burst of light so intense it blinded everyone in the room. When the light finally faded, the team blinked against the sudden darkness. The lab was in disarray. Equipment lay scattered. Wires sparked feebly, and the air smelled of burnt metal, but the bomb was quiet. It surfaced dull and lifeless once more. What just happened? Rachel asked, lowering her camera. Laura checked her instruments, her hands trembling. The energy field, it's gone. Completely neutralized. Stephen sank into a nearby chair, his legs unable to support him any longer. Did we? Stop it. Daniel examined the bomb closely, running his fingers over its now inert surface. It's safe, whatever was inside it. It's released or contained. Hard to say which. Emily exhaled deeply, her shoulders sagging with relief. We did it, against all odds. We figured it out. Rachel turned off her camera, her mind racing. She had witnessed history in the making, but she knew the story wasn't over. The world would demand answers, and she intended to provide them. Commander Johnson burst into the lab moments later, his weapon drawn. When he saw the team standing amidst the wreckage, unharmed, he lowered his gun, his expression a mix of relief and disbelief. What happened in here? Stephen stepped forward, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. We activated it. The bomb, it's neutralized. Whatever it was designed to do, it's done. Johnson stared at him, processing the information. You're sure? There's no risk of further danger? As sure as we can be, Stephen replied. It's over. Johnson nodded slowly, holstering his weapon. Good work, all of you. As the commander left to report the news, the team collapsed into chairs. Their bodies drained, but their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they had succeeded. They had faced the unknown and emerged victorious not just for themselves, but for humanity. Yet, even as they celebrated quietly, questions lingered. What had the bomb truly been meant to unlock? And what kind of future awaited them now that it was gone? Only time would tell. ***, we gave Earth a bomb. What they did next was unbelievable. ***, the aftermath of the bomb's activation left the team in a state of stunned silence. The lab was a mess. Equipment lay scattered. Wires sparked faintly, and the air still carried the sharp smell of burnt metal. But despite the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of relief. Whatever had been inside the bomb was gone now, its energy released or contained. The glowing spiral that had dominated the room only moments ago was dark and lifeless. Stephen sat slumped in a chair, his head resting in his hands. His body was exhausted, but his mind raced with questions. Did we do the right thing? He muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Laura looked up from her laptop, where she was reviewing the final data readings. Right or wrong, we didn't have a choice. If we hadn't acted, it might have overloaded and caused something far worse. Daniel nodded, though his expression remained uneasy. Still, we don't really know what happened. Was it destruction, creation, or something else entirely? Emily crossed her arms, her brow furrowed in thought. Maybe it's not about the outcome. Maybe the real test was whether we could work together under pressure, whether we could make a decision when it mattered most. Rachel lowered her camera, her fingers trembling slightly as she turned off the recording. If that's true, then we passed. But the world isn't going to see it that way. Everyone out there is going to want answers, and they're going to want them now. Outside the lab, the situation was escalating. News of the explosion-like event had spread quickly, fueled by eyewitness accounts and shaky footage captured by protesters. Near the perimeter, social media erupted with speculation, ranging from claims of alien invasion to declarations of global catastrophe. Governments scrambled to respond, issuing conflicting statements that only added to the confusion. Commander Alex Johnson stood in the control room, addressing a group of military officials via video conference. The bomb has been neutralized, he reported, his tone firm but measured. Dr. Carter and his team managed to stabilize the situation. There is no immediate threat. One of the officials leaned forward, skepticism etched on his face. Neutralized doesn't mean safe. Are you certain there's no residual risk? As certain as we can be, Johnson replied. The team conducted thorough scans after the event. No unusual energy signatures remain, for all intents and purposes. The artifact is inert. Another official spoke up, her voice sharp. What about the public? How do we explain this without causing mass panic? That's your department, Johnson said dryly. All I can tell you is that the immediate danger has passed. Beyond that, it's up to the higher-ups to decide how much information to release. The meeting ended abruptly, leaving Johnson to deal with the fallout. He glanced at the clock. Less than an hour had passed since the activation. It had felt like days. He knew the real challenge was just beginning managing public perception, containing misinformation, and ensuring that the truth didn't spiral out of control. Back in the lab, the team was piecing together what little they knew. Steven stared at the now dormant bomb, his thoughts swirling. It's strange, he said finally. When we activated it, I expected, I don't know, some kind of explosion. Something visible. Instead, it just stopped. Maybe that's the point, Laura suggested. It wasn't designed to destroy, it was designed to transform. Or maybe it already did, in ways we can't see yet. Daniel frowned. Transform what? Us? The planet? Before anyone could answer, Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and sighed. It's my editor. He wants me to file a report within the hour. Steven looked at her sharply. What are you going to say? The truth, Rachel replied. At least, as much of it as I can. People deserve to know what happened. But how much truth can they handle? Emily asked quietly. If we tell them everything, the symbols, the countdown, the activation, they'll freak out. And if we leave things vague, they'll fill in the blanks themselves. Steven rubbed his temples. She's right. We need to be careful. This isn't just about science anymore. It's about trust. Rachel hesitated, weighing their words. Then I'll focus on the facts. The bomb was analyzed, activated, and neutralized. No harm done. That's the message we need to send. The team agreed reluctantly, knowing that transparency was crucial, but also risky. As Rachel stepped outside to make her call, the others turned their attention back to the bomb. Hours later, the first reports began circulating. Rachel's article appeared on major news outlets, accompanied by carefully edited footage of the lab and the glowing spiral. Her tone was calm and factual, emphasizing the team's efforts to prevent disaster while downplaying the uncertainty surrounding the bomb's purpose. Public reaction was mixed. Some praised the scientists for their bravery, while others accused them of recklessness. Conspiracy theories flourished online, with some claiming the bomb had opened a portal to another dimension, while others insisted it had unleashed an alien entity upon the world. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, demanding transparency and accountability. World leaders convened emergency sessions, debating how to address the growing unrest. Amid the chaos, Secretary General Eleanor Morales held a press conference to reassure the public. Standing before a sea of reporters, she spoke with quiet authority. This event has raised many questions, and understandably so. However, I want to assure everyone that the situation is under control. Our top priority remains the safety and well-being of humanity. A reporter raised his hand. Secretary General, can you confirm whether the bomb posed any long-term risks? Some experts are suggesting it may have altered Earth's environment or even reality itself. Morales paused, choosing her words carefully. While we cannot rule out every possibility, preliminary assessments indicate no lasting impact. Scientists continue to monitor the situation closely, and we will share updates as they become available. Her response did little to quell the speculation, but it bought time, a precious commodity in the wake of such an unprecedented event. Meanwhile, the team returned to the lab, determined to uncover more answers. They examined the bomb from every angle, searching for clues that might reveal its true purpose. To their surprise, faint markings began appearing on its surface, new symbols that hadn't been there before. What is this? Laura asked, tracing the patterns with her finger. They weren't here earlier. Steven studied the markings intently. It's like a message. But why now? Why after the activation? Emily pulled out her notes, comparing the new symbols to the ones they had decoded previously. These looked different, more intricate, almost celebratory. Celebratory, Daniel echoed skeptically. You think the Valens are congratulating us? It's possible, Emily replied. Or maybe it's confirmation that we made the right choice. Rachel snapped a photo of the markings, her journalist instincts kicking in. If these are meant to be read, then someone needs to translate them. Fast. The team worked through the night, deciphering the new symbols. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The message wasn't written in words, but in concepts, images of growth, renewal, and interconnectedness. It seemed to suggest that the bomb had indeed transformed something. Though the exact nature of the change remained unclear. As dawn broke, Stephen stepped back, rubbing his eyes. I think I understand now. The bomb wasn't a weapon. It was a catalyst, a tool to push humanity toward a new phase of evolution. Laura nodded slowly. And whatever transformation it triggered, it's already happening. We just can't see it yet. Days turned into weeks, and subtle changes began to appear across the globe. Crops grew faster and healthier, even in regions plagued by drought. Diseases that had resisted treatment for decades showed signs of weakening. Conflicts between nations eased, replaced by tentative steps toward cooperation. People reported feeling calmer, more connected to one another, as though a weight had been lifted from the world. Scientists struggled to explain the phenomenon, attributing it to everything from environmental shifts to psychological effects, but those who had witnessed the bomb's activation knew better. The transformation had begun not with destruction, but with creation. Rachel published a follow-up article, highlighting the positive changes while acknowledging the lingering mysteries. Her conclusions struck a hopeful note. Whatever the Valens intended, their gift has given us a chance to redefine ourselves. Whether we rise to the occasion is up to us. Stephen read the article with a small smile. She got it right, he said softly. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's hope we're ready for whatever comes next. As the team packed up the lab, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had played a part in something far greater than themselves. The bomb had tested them, challenged them, and ultimately changed them. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Humanity had taken its first step into a new era, one shaped not by fear, but by hope.